All right, so we're recording. So as you did this one, right, the top part, once you graphed it, we basically answered these questions over here. The one we didn't answer was the difference between a revenue maximizing firm and a profit maximizing firm. Well, if I use this that's currently on here, in order to find my revenue maximizing firm, that has to go to 0. And so look at where the price level is in the quantity for a profit maximizing one compared to price and quantity for a revenue maximizing firm. This is our Best Buy example from Friday. In Best Buy, remember they had some years where they tried to change their philosophy to maximize revenue instead of maximizing profit. So they were lowering their prices so they could sell more. Well, the whole thought was the problem is that now they started sacrificing profit. So like in this case, we'd actually be losing money. According to this graph, we'd actually be losing money. We'd have a loss, right? But I mean, for Best Buy, they weren't losing a profit, but maybe they were economically. They weren't accounting profit-wise. But then they went away from that. All right. So underneath here, here's what and I know this was such a stupid analogy. The entree. This even sounds stupid as I'm saying it out loud. The entree for today, right? The main thing for today is this right here. We're going to do a main comparison between perfect competition and pure monopoly. We're going to take the 5 different concepts and we're going to compare them between a pure monopoly and what it is, how that differs between that and a perfect competition. And so we'll be able to ideally get through efficiency and surplus. We'll definitely do efficiency, maybe not have a chance to get to surplus at all. All right, so on that bottom area, would you just redraw the exact, it could be a little bit different, but here, there's a couple of you, Maddie, I remember seeing yours. You had your ATC so far up here. Can you make sure that your ATC is down so you're making a profit in here? Right, so just have your ATC crossed. When you do this, it isn't really that important right now, but try to have the ATC cross the demand curve while the ATC is upward sloping. Because when we talk about something on Wednesday, it actually changes, right? So try to have that demand curve hit the ATC up there, just because visually it's easier for you to be able to see. So I'll give you a couple minutes to get that in there. All right, I'll make one round just to make sure maybe you're adding your P's and Q's in there. And what you see how, and I don't know if you can tell there, but the P and the Q, it has an M by it. Would you add the M? Because we're going to add a different P and a Q later on when we talk about perfect competition. We're going to go through it. We're going to kind of we're going to look at some of the main pieces of it. But make sure that the P and Q has an M for monopoly. And again, make sure that your quantity is at the profit maximizing point. Where's your Okay, good. Yep. Nice. You did. I will say that's correct. You did the hard way. You did the hard way by having the point up here first. You should really make sure you're here, because the price is determined by the profit maximizing point. You could draw up and then draw down. Okay. Right? Because when you start here, now you know this is my quantity. You can go dot, 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 and then you go up to the price. So if you start up there, you're estimating where the intersection point is. Okay? All right, good. Here we go. Making sure we're make sure you label that as marginal cost, so you know the marginal cost curve. Okay. Marginal cost. All right, good. So we're gonna do this. Well, All right, let's add this in. Oh, now I got to go over here. Okay, let's add this in next to it. Right, next to this one right here, you have some open space on this page 13, right over here. And so here's what I'm going to have you do. Would you please add in a perfectly competitive industry or market? And then add in next to it, you should have space for both these, a perfectly competitive firm. All right, and since we're making a profit over there, let's have this one make a profit here too. So add both those in. I'll add them in here as well. All right, that's how the first one looks like, right? Your first one looks like that. Second one, you're gonna go ... Here's my price, demand, MR. Add in your marginal cost. And we're going to add in an ATC. Here's my lowercase q. That's all we have, right? That's all I need you to have right now. All right, we're going to do some analysis. We're going to do some analysis of this, of really comparing these. And then at the end, we're going to use this one graph, and I'm going to ask you a question. If this is here's what a free response question could be. Anderson Incorporated is in an imperfectly competitive market. Anderson Incorporated is in an imperfectly competitive market, and graph that, and you're going to graph this, and then it's going to say identify pricing, quantity, and profit, blah blah blah. And then the question may say, now assume that this pure monopoly has now become perfectly competitive. Now identify the price and quantity. Not draw new graphs, but you're going to make the assumptions from this one graph. That's where we're going to go. But we have to kind of build that up here first. And so I'm going to call on a few folks, to help us with that analysis. So let's go back and look at a few different things. What is the relationship between price and demand? I'll ask this here first. What's the relationship between price and demand? Manuel, what's that? Equal. They're equal. And is that for perfect competition and pure monopoly, or just one of them?
Just perfect competition.
Okay, not a pure monopoly. Where was your price for your pure monopoly?
On the demand.
Okay, so it's both. Okay, so this is pure monopoly and perfect competition. That's where that's price equals demand up here. If we are going to be a profit, and this is a question you are probably already sick of, and you will become sick of me asking. But I ask the question because we have to keep bringing it up, because that's the main part of it. If we're a profit maximizing firm, where is our quantity for a profit maximizing firm? Maggie? All right, so MR equals MC. Maggie, is that for perfect competition and pure monopoly, or just one of them? Both of them. Okay, so this is PC and PM. And last one we have, if we again are a profit maximizing firm, I want to know how I calculate profit. That's what I want to find. How do I calculate profit? Hanley?
Price times quantity, or price minus average total cost times quantity.
Okay, that's good. So we got P. So Ben said price minus ATC times quantity. Ben, is that for perfect competition and pure monopoly, or just one of them?
Both.
Okay, it's both of them. So I want you to see what's going on here. These three concepts, price, quantity, and profit, those were three of the five main concepts we talked about. These are the same no matter which one of these we look at. It doesn't matter how we graph it. It's the same exact way. So it's, okay, I find profit one way. I find my profit maximizing quantity one way. My price is always in a demand, right? So there's always one way to do it. Now we get to the point of, if we look at the relationship between demand and marginal revenue, and so there's a separation here by a squiggly line. So underneath your graphs, you could add this stuff. If you feel like I know every single thing he said right now. Yeah, maybe you need to add it, right? So if you're still a little bit fuzzy and you want a little bit, you want kind of things more in one spot, we can add this. In perfect competition, what is the relationship between demand and marginal revenue? Sophia? Okay, they're equal. All right, Luca, why are they equal? Why is demand equal to marginal revenue in perfect competition? Just like it is over here, right? Demand equals MR over here, right? Because what? Thank you very much. That's an excellent answer. There is no price effect. Right? That is I'm putting circles around that one. There's no price effect in perfect competition. So the demand equals the MR. But when we look at the relationship between demand and marginal revenue for a pure monopoly, Tyler, what's the relationship between demand and MR in a pure monopoly?
Equal.
Okay. Is this the same thing as that? Okay. Try again.
Demand is greater.
There you go. Demand is greater. Demand is greater than marginal revenue in a pure monopoly. Avi, why is it greater than marginal revenue?
Because there is price effect.
Because it has the price effect. Because this has the price effect. Right? So this information right here, this is the all of these are important. This is the reason why there's so much of a difference between pure monopoly and perfect competition. Is because of these two things right here. One has a price effect, one doesn't. When you don't have the price effect, the demand equals MR. Now, it's not necessarily means that they're perfectly elastic. They're perfectly elastic because they're a price taker. On Wednesday, we'll talk about a price maker, downward sloping demand curve, that has no price effect. Right? And so now, we're trying to put all these different things together and kind of see how does it all relate to each other. So that being the case, if we look at the difference, and if I said to you, this is you graph this is a pure monopoly earning a profit, and you graphed it. Now the question is, now assume it has become perfectly competitive. Where would you identify the price and quantity if it is a profit maximizing firm? Where would the price and quantity be? That's demand. And you have to think about what we just did here and how can you transfer that knowledge to the graph? I'll give you a moment to ponder that. Where would the price and output be? Because it's not going to be the same exact spot. And then we'll give some conclusions about it. Any takers? That's Jen.
Is it your marginal cost if it's a demand curve?
Why?
Because demand is equal to marginal revenue.
All right, so now what we're taking, if you didn't hear what Wei Wei said, is she said it equals here, that is the quantity for PC. So add in a quantity for PC and then come over here and add a price in for PC. And the reason it is because in a perfectly competitive industry or market firm and industry, the MR equals your demand curve. How do I know that? Because that's just what you told me right here. The demand is the MR in perfect competition. And so if we look at that, now here's the catch. Someone asked a good question. I get the same question every single year. They ask a question, so do we then cross out this MR curve? Well, no, because you still need that for the pure monopoly. You just have to unsee it when you're looking at perfect competition. So you do not have two different curves when it's viewed as a pure monopoly because there is no MR curve. The MR curve becomes your demand curve. They just merge just like they did here. And if we look at this one here, you could add this in. That's kind of what we could do, right? So here's my MR and my demand curve for an industry, and then the supply curve is kind of like your marginal cost. And then you look at that as you go back and analyze this, and that's why That's why it ends up being where my quantity is here. So your conclusion, what you can add underneath there, your conclusion is a pure monopoly has a higher price and lower quantity or output than perfect competition due to the price effect. Boom, boom. That's your conclusion. When you compare it all, when you compare all this, that's really what it comes down to. And all of this that gets built leads to this conclusion when you can step back and just take a look at that graph.
Isn't the first one just PM?
I'm sorry. Yep. Thank you. PM. Thank you. I saw people taking a picture of that. You have to take another picture now. Sorry. A pure monopoly has a higher price, lower output due to the price effect. And that's going to be, and I think I mentioned to you last week, at some point when we talk about pure monopoly and perfect competition, there's a difference in pricing, quantity, profit, efficiency, and surplus. And every single one of them, the reason is because of the price effect. Because if you don't have the price effect, my demand and MR here, and everything is the same. You add that price effect because I have to reduce the price on my previous units and I lose revenue. The MR drops to here, everything changes. Because your MR and your MC, your optimal output occurs earlier. Pausing. Now here is I'm going to erase this one. I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to show you a different version of this graph. All right, a different version of this graph looks like this. Adam, what's different about this graph?
MC equals ATC.
Yep, compared to that, that's one. What else is different?
Marginal cost is constant.
Okay, your marginal cost is constant. If you look back over here, marginal cost was upward sloping along with your ATC. Now this one, they're the same exact thing. How much, in this example, the way that this is given, in this example, how much fixed cost do we have?
0.
Nada. Nothing. 9. 0. And the reason why is because marginal costs are variable costs. If variable cost is equal to ATC, that means we can't have any fixed cost. Right, so that's a possibility for a business. Most businesses are going to have some fixed costs. But when you see this, that's the interpretation. There is no fixed cost. Here's the other interpretation. The other interpretation is the best example I think that you guys can relate to. This is Netflix without the fixed costs, right? So this is Netflix. If you have a perfectly elastic marginal cost curve, what Netflix is it's a streaming service. You know that. What Netflix, if you're going to have, if all of you, if none of you had Netflix, and then Tyler's going to add it, right? There's a marginal cost of it's pretty high, but $200, right? Which is obviously not the case because you only pay $12 for it. And then Derek is going to get added, and then Dylan's going to get added, and Avi, and so on and so forth. Well, I've already set up the algorithm, and I've already set up the system that all people have to do is go on, put your email and a password, and put a credit card in there, and you automatically have access. There's nothing I have to do differently when I add one more person. So the marginal cost is perfectly constant. So when you have something like that, something software related, that doesn't require me to have additional resources to produce one more thing and to add a client, your marginal cost is going to be perfectly elastic. So that's just a different version of that. We're going to, those of you who are at home, we're going to do that Monopoly review problem that I handed out last week, and so I'm going to pause this one and stop, and then I'll restart it when we get to the next. Then after this problem, those of at home, we're going to do check your understanding number 3. Number 3.